If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. You can record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. You can make money right from your podcast with no minimum listeners. It's everything you need to make a podcast right in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome to the Be the Adult podcast. Be the Adult is a nonprofit organization that provides blueprints for calm and effective parenting so that children can grow into their best selves. Because ultimately, we aren't raising children. We are raising little people who will one day be adults.
Hello, Nancy.
Hey, Marisol.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. I'm excited for this week's topic. It is episode 4 of the Be the Adult podcast. If you are just joining us this week, we are a nonprofit with a passion to share content in the world to help people live their best lives.
To change the world.
To change the world. And we have come up with about 15 concepts for calm and effective parenting, because we believe that if we start at home, all our worlds could change for the better.
Yes.
So this week's topic, I'm excited about Speak Kindly. And if you have not listened to our previous podcast, I highly suggest you go back and listen to them because it will help you. And I'm thrilled to be doing this with you. So thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, these first few podcasts, they really build on each other because including today and the last few have really been how to set ourselves up to be effective parents and form good relationships. It's kind of getting ourselves into the mode.
Yes. And they kind of build up because they're like building blocks, I feel.
It's a good analogy.
The last few were, stay calm, behave gently, and now we're going to speak kindly.
Yes.
And if someone's listening to us, we've had a few people listen to our podcast and they say that we're very, our voices are very calm and zen-like. And you might think that, we speak kindly all the time.
I do 100%, don't you?
No, I'm going to say that as a Latin woman, speaking kindly is not inherently bred into me. It was not. The kindest way I can put it is I can become very passionate.
I love that.
And I am a lover of words, and especially profanity. So speaking kindly is something that I've had to work on. And it's a struggle for me, unlike others that you would have thought would have been a bigger struggle, but it's my favorite one. It's the one that I love practicing, speaking kindly to in general and speaking kindly to myself, which
Beautiful.
Is a huge thing. So let me read from the book. This is from the perspective of the child to the parent. So why is speaking kindly important? Why? This teaches me that I deserve to be spoken to respectfully, and it also shows me how I should talk to you and others. How? Please use kind words even when you are upset, because hurtful words can't be taken back. Ooh, that first line hits me right in the solar plexus.
Oh.
I've seen an example of this, probably, I can't remember where, but like words are like a piece of paper. And if you crumple it up and throw that piece of paper at someone, you can unfold that piece of paper.
Yes.
But it's still crumpled up.
Absolutely.
And, physical abuse is very, it's obvious. It's a thing. But words are not so obvious sometimes, because sometimes you just speak to people the way you were spoken to growing up.
Right.
And you don't realize the emotional toll that can take.
Right.
So I want to talk about speaking kindly.
Yes, because I'm just going to kind of name what you're saying, right? So we can see the trauma that physical abuse inflicts on our kids and other adults. And it's hard to see the trauma that words emotional abuse inflicts. And the wounds are just as deep.
Yes.
And sometimes carry more shame because they're not seen by others as easily. Yeah.
And I think the way I think of it is the words can become the tape in your head.
Absolutely.
The words that you're, like for me, when I took on learning meditation, it was really hard for me not because of the sitting still part or anything, but it was the awareness of the loop that was playing in my head, which was my mom's voice.
Yeah.
And my mom did not speak kindly to me.
Yes.
I know when I laugh about this stuff, it's probably some sort of mechanism, but it works for me.
It's okay, whatever works. Just know my heart hurts when you say that. Yeah.
Your eyes always look so sweet. But those wounds, to me, are the harder ones to get over than the physical. For me, everyone's a different person. So this one's really important to me, about speaking kindly and also being aware of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and in my experience with clients and just the world, the not speaking kindly, more of the kind of the emotional abuse is okay for me to name it that way for you.
That's a kind way of saying it.
The crap, right? Yeah. Flies more often all day long, right? Sometimes where, the physical abuse, while sometimes it is daily, unfortunately, for people,
could be more, every once in a while.
Yeah. And but both of them wound so deeply, and there's so much research out there. And again, this is not a therapeutic podcast; it's a conversational, so it's not clinical. But please, if you want to do the research of the negative, really harmful, traumatic effects of both physical and emotional abuse. Yeah.
And I know when I say the word abuse, it could trigger someone like, oh, they don't want to see themselves as an abusive person. I don't want to see myself as an abusive person, but I know I have said things that, rewinding the tape, I don't want that to be my child's inner dialogue.
Right.
Because at that moment, I didn't use the right words. I didn't speak kindly.
Right.
I didn't get the point across that I wanted to get across correctly using the most evolved version of me to say what I needed to say. And that is universal. Like, I don't know who is listening to this podcast, but I can say that we've all probably said something at some point that the child could have interpreted the way that is going to stick to them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and not feel good enough. There's that shame piece. Yeah, there are a couple of layers again.
Yeah, there's always layers on these topics.
And I'm not in no particular order, but we decrease the probability that we're going to be heard and we're going to be able to lead our kids, right? Be the people they look to for guidance when we are reactive, when we are not speaking kindly, because most kids will either shut down and start tuning us out because this crap is coming towards them, which doesn't feel good, or they're going to get super angry, right? Which is valid, right? And their defenses will go up and their porcupine needles will come out and they'll lash out. And so neither space is a space that they're going to be actually able to hear us and take in the hopefully good part of what we're trying to say. Yeah. And then another layer, right? It teaches them that they deserve to be treated that way, that they're not good enough for us, that we can treat them so poorly, that somehow they deserve that because they don't have the brain development yet to be like, oh, that's mom's shit.
Yeah.
Instead, it's, wow, what's wrong with me that mom's talking to me that way.
And that, can I just stop
sorry.
you there? The what's wrong with me is a lifelong journey to heal. Yeah. So it's really important to be aware of that. Again, it can become the subconscious voice in your child's head. Even if it's not your norm, words have such an impact on the soul. I think it's on the soul.
It's a good way to say it. Yeah, it's traumatic, right? It's kind of like if you picture cement, and all of the harsh words that we use are imprinted forever. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but it's true. And so having the awareness, we can't change anything we said in the past, and we know that that was our best. Some of it kind of sucked, but it was our best at the moment. But it's like, okay, well, what can I do about it now to reduce that? And then another layer, sorry, I obviously have a lot of passion.
Yeah, go ahead.
Keep running on about this. Is that then when we hear our children speak to us unkindly, we're like, oh no, But yet, who taught them that? We did, right? And so it's total setup for them to fail because that's the language we're teaching them.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've had that come back to me. It's like a boomerang. Like as soon as I've done...
I love your analogies.
I've done something, it does not take that long to see that behavior come right back at me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'll give an example. Again,
Okay. Love your example.
Not my proudest moments. It wasn't actually something that was directed at one of my kids, but my kids observed me.
Right.
And this was many years ago, and I was in an incredibly tense situation in my life. And I took my cell phone and I tossed it with a slew of profanities coming out of my mouth. And one of my children observed me doing that.
Yeah.
My child, for years, would get an extreme level of anger, would throw his cell phone. I shouldn't say which child, but I just did. That was, and I constantly was like, you learned that from me.
Yeah.
This is I can't blame anyone else. I can't blame the situation. I can't blame, what the extreme things I was going on for my behavior. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And it sucks. I hated it. It took him a few rounds of that to realize, to teach himself not to do that.
Right.
It was a great teachable moment for him and I.
Yeah.
But he learned that from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How beautiful, though, that, that it could become a teachable moment.
Yeah.
For him to realize in life that, you're rewiring his brain, and a lot of it is amazing. And
take the good,
right,
and leave the bad.
Right. And I hope he always has that awareness to like, okay, so how am I being in this world now that's really takes good care of me and others? And how am I being in this world that's needs some work?
Yes.
So,
yes,
yeah. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little cringing right now as people hear this, but yes, I'm a big proponent of speaking kindly because I know for myself, I as Zen-like as people like to say that we are, I have moments where that fire just, hits and I don't speak kindly. And it kind of piggybacks on our last podcast where I'm not behaving gently. And then piggybacks on the one before that.
Right.
I'm not staying calm. And I have as I'm kindly going to explain, is a teachable moment of like, shit, you know, where I'm not showing up as my best version of myself. I will forgive myself because I'm human.
I can give an example, a little bit more benign example, but just to show the spectrum of all of this, right? So, trying to remember my exact words, but I'm in front of one of my kids. I have somewhat of a sweet tooth is an understatement, which I've been working on. And in the past, I'd like to say, I still do it, but not as much, would say, ugh, what's wrong with me? Why did I just eat that piece of cake or whole cake or box of Girl Scout cookies or whatever it is? And one day, one of my kids looked at me and said, why do you get so mad at yourself for doing that? And I would say, I don't know. Why do I get so mad? I guess it's because it's a behavior I want to change, but I'm not doing it. And he's like, well, you're not going to help yourself change if you keep beating yourself up.
It's beautiful.
I know. I was like, ooh, I guess you have been listening to me, even though you pretend like you don't. So again, this could be, it's a whole spectrum of behaviors that they're watching, and whether we're not speaking kindly to ourselves or not speaking kindly to others or not behaving gently.
They will. I will say that, using that phone story, that's where it imprinted on me. Like, wow, they are really like they absorb everything I'm doing.
Yes,
and recreating it in their own life.
Yes.
So it was very eye-opening to me. And I joke about it now on a podcast, but it was a huge moment in my family's dynamic where we're like, okay, I need to keep this in check. And he learned after multiple phones that I would not purchase for him.
Right, good. I was wondering about that.
No, he learned that lesson on his own. It took him, a few times of that, and me being very honest and saying, this is me. It breaks my heart to see you do that because I know that you learned this from me.
Yeah.
And I always say, I'm giving you lots of opportunities to grow and evolve.
I love that. It's true.
Take the good, take the stuff that I've done good, and leave the stuff that I've done wrong, because I'm doing things, some things wrong because I'm not perfect.
Right.
And that's the message I want to give to everyone listening. You're listening to this podcast, you're already taking one step in the right direction.
Huge step. Yeah.
But we all make mistakes. We all don't show up perfectly to every situation, and our children are watching. So start with speaking kindly to yourself. Forgive yourself for those moments that you didn't show up perfectly, and speak kindly to your kids.
Yeah, and know it was your best. People kind of look funny at me when I say that. They're like, how can you say that was my best? That sucked. Like, but it was your best. Otherwise, you would have done differently.
And I know, if I told this true story of why I threw my phone, like what I was reading at the moment,
Right.
that, and everything that was going on in my life at that given moment, people would be like, that's the least you did. That's like,
Right.
So I am kind to myself, and I know that at that moment, that was the best I could do. Honestly, that I didn't do something else that ended me in jail.
Exactly.
Probably the worst case scenario. So it is the best you can do at that moment.
Yeah, and it's where we grow, right? We grow when we get uncomfortable enough with the crap that we're swimming in, right? I think we talked about that in one of the other podcasts. When things get uncomfortable enough, we want to get out of that. And so you had that really uncomfortable moment and you grew from it, and so did your kid. That's beautiful. That's how it works. Another piece of this is that speaking kindly to yourself, but also modeling speaking kindly to others, because we are teaching our children how to be in relationship, right? And in relationship with themselves, obviously, in relationship with us, and then they'll take that out into the world, and they're going to learn from us how to interact and treat others. And so we really, I believe, I've said 1,000 times, probably 10,000 to my kids, everything starts in the home, because that's really where the wiring is done, right?
And that's where they take it out to the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it's so hard to change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's so deeply ingrained.
Yeah. But you can. I mean, that's the only reason I feel comfortable being on a podcast about parenting with you is because I have changed. I've taken a story of origin that's pretty, like literally an example of everything that you're not supposed to do in this book.
Yeah.
And I'm not professing to be perfect or an expert in anything, but I have the life that I want to have today. I have the relationship I have with my kids today because of these concepts that help me. And so I invite anyone to try, just try.
Absolutely. And the trying, give yourself credit for trying.
Yeah.
It's the effort. Like you always hear, praise your kids' effort. That's the best way to get them kind of where they need to be. Same with ourselves.
And it's a practice, like yoga or running or anything.
New language.
Yeah. It's not something that you're going to get the first time around and it's forever. You're going to be fine, do this perfectly. It's a practice. You're going to have moments, you're not going to be speaking kindly. Since starting this podcast, I remember with one of my kids, I got frustrated, and in speaking to them, I used profanity, and in my thought bubble, my thought bubble was like, this is not, you should not be doing a podcast on this. And then, but immediately I was like, provided me the opportunity to circle back and like, okay, I'm sorry, mommy dropped the F-bomb.
Yes.
But you still have to,
But it's the saying, I'm sorry, right? It's showing them that they're going to screw up. What do you do when you screw up? You're aware of it. You own it. You try to make amends for it, right?
Yeah.
Which is good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all opportunities for growth. That's what I say.
Absolutely. And in the opportunity for growth, right, to try, I know we talked about this in the previous podcast, or maybe the beginning of this one, to not take the bat and beat ourselves up. Because if you're standing at a baseball diamond, I always mix metaphors, but if you're going to stand at a baseball diamond and take a bat and hit yourself, you're going to get bruised and bloody and decrease the probability that you'll run around the bases and grow and change and get where you want to be. But instead, if you put the bat down and you're like, oh, look at that bat. That stunk, right? Or that sucks.
Yeah.
What can I do to not beat myself up? What can I do to run around the bases and grow?
Yes. So if someone is not, if this is their weakest link, if speaking kindly to themselves and to their children is not their default,
Their biggest challenge.
it doesn't have to necessarily be that they're, violently angry, but maybe they're just very like short and, very little, what's the word? Kindly.
Right.
And what do you suggest for someone if this is out of their norm?
Yeah, so there are 1,000 things to do. If someone is really behavioral, right, want some concrete mechanisms, maybe get a jar, and every time that you use a word that you don't think is so appropriate or kind, put a penny in it. Or on your phone, make a tally mark if you don't want anyone else to know you're doing this. Another way, we call it increasing your awareness functioning. So we have to be acutely aware of something to want to change it, right? And it's counterintuitive, but we need to get uncomfortable enough with it to want to change it. So we need to lean into it. So any other way you can do it. So the token jar is one way. Another way is to get the note part of your phone or in a piece of paper. Old school is what I do. And write down all day long the words that you use that aren't so kind. And then read it to yourself, not in front of your children, but read it to yourself at the end of the day and just sit with that and say, wow, I said all these things today. How does that feel for me right now? And notice in your body, what does that feel like to have spoken unkindly 30 times or whatever it is that you come up with? And just sit with that and don't beat yourself up and say, wow, I suck. Just say, wow, I wasn't aware of how often I speak unkindly to others or to myself. And then do that for a couple days or a week until you get so uncomfortable and so much more aware that then you'll have more of the want to change that. And then maybe after you finish that, the next day start with, you know what, pick a kind word in the morning and say, I'm going to make sure I say this word 5 times today. So that's just off the top of my head, a couple things we could do. Is that helpful?
Yeah, no, I'm remembering a few years ago, I'd gone on a cruise with my kids and we had gotten, those like coconut drinks that the drinks come in.
Oh yeah, those are cool.
And so when we came home, we played this game over the summer because I was trying to implement this within the sibling
good
dynamic. And we played a game. I don't remember exactly how it started, but I think everyone started with a certain amount in their coconut. And if they were kind, if something was said kindly, I think it was like whatever we started with, let's just say $5. I would put $1 in that person's coconut. If something was said unkindly or done that was not kind, $1 was removed from the coconut.
Right.
So all summer long, money was transferring in and out of these coconuts based on how kind we were.
Beautiful.
And at the end of the summer, the one child who had the most money in her coconut because she really practiced being kind. So that was just something we had done. It wasn't so much about the money, but the awareness of it was a huge gift. It was like, whoa.
Can't change anything without the awareness.
Yeah.
And the more aware we become, the easier it becomes to change something.
Yeah.
Increases our want to change it. Absolutely. And then it models for our children too. If we don't have to show them our list of 30 unkind words, I'm sure they were privy to a lot of them, but we say, you know what, I want to change that. I don't like how I'm speaking to myself and to you, and I'm so sorry,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to work on changing that, and this is what I'm going to do. So they see us putting effort in to changing something, and it shows them that they deserve, again, to be treated more kindly,
Yes.
and that we're showing them that we deserve to treat ourselves kindly, too.
Excellent. So that is episode 4 on Speaking Kindly. I'm excited to delve into episode 5 next week on Listen to Me. That one's going to be a little meaty because there's a lot there.
There's a lot there.
And I want to say again, thank you for listening to the podcast and joining us on this journey. If you would like to support the podcast, please rate and review, share. And if you'd like to support our nonprofit organization, look for information at our website, www.betheadult.org.
Thank you. And pat yourself on the back for listening.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to the Be the Adult podcast. Please follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and don't forget to rate and subscribe to our podcast. A special thank you to a few of our Barn Dance Barbecue fundraiser sponsors for their generous support. Rees Architecture, Coastal Carolina Radiation Oncology, the Valentino family, the Law Office of Jeffrey Porter, Emerge Ortho. See you on the next episode of Be the Adult Podcast.